Hi.
We're now live. Okay. Sally with us? Not yet.
Not yet.
She'll probably join quickly.
Sally, you can hear us? There you are.
I can hear you.
Perfect.
I may.
Okay.
Just so you know, Ed, my problem is with WebEx. If it's a Zoom meeting, it never freezes, but with WebEx, it freezes frequently. So if I cut off the video, that's why.
Well, I'm sure that has been noted by staff. I prefer Zoom either as well, but. Okay. It's 1 o'clock, so I'm going to call this Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee to order. There has been an agenda published for us. Does anyone have any additions or deletions they wish to make to the agenda? And if not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Tom will move, and I'll take Sally will second. And I assume we need to go through a protocol of calling the vote, Carolyn? Or you're going to do it, Catherine.
Good.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Warden Marks,
Yes,
Councillor Martin,
Yes,
Councillor Giguere,
Yes.
Councillor Ketchabah.
Yes,
4-0, the motion is carried.
thank you. Julie, we have not notified the committee members of a resignation. Is it appropriate this time to do so?
Yes.
All right, I will then inform the council or the committee members that Heather Dirks has resigned from the Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee effective shortly after our last meeting. And I know that Julie and I have had or exchanged an email or two about it, but we haven't finalized anything. I'll share that in my opinion, the community rep was appointed for, I believe, and Sally, you were here at the last council, but the community rep position was put on there to help facilitate a review of the Natural Heritage System Study. And I'm not sure that there is any requirement to renew that position going forward. I'm sure we'll dig in, take a look.
yeah, that is my understanding as well, that it was to make sure we had someone representing agriculture on the, which as a community member, Heather was representing the agricultural community.
Yeah. Okay. So questions
Mr. Chair, so I believe it was the terms of reference. I think of the natural heritage study required
Yep,
that position.
that's right.
So it's not a requirement of the rural initiatives, is that right, in our terms of reference?
Well, that's the point.
It would involve a change at the council level if you were recommending one way or the other. It is worth confirming with our manager of planning whether if you have a planning committee, is there an obligation to have any sort of membership composition?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think there is, because I know that I was on planning committees at City of London and there was no public representative on there. So if it's a true planning committee or considered a planning committee of council, there is likely no need for representation.
Okay, Tom, you had a comment?
I would suggest then we acknowledge and receive the resignation with regret.
We already have.
Oh, okay then.
So we're ahead of you there, Tom. I'm thinking though, to close the loop, though, we may need to come back to council with a bit of a staff report and perhaps amend the terms of reference for the committee.
Sounds great.
If that's, I don't see the issue of having a community rep until something like another planning issue like a natural heritage system study requiring. Okay?
The one other thought, Ed, that I, conservation authorities in the new outline with from the province, if the conservation authorities does not have an agricultural rep on it, the province has the right to appoint them. But if they have someone on who does represent agriculture as well as being a counselor, then they don't need to do that. So we certainly have on this committee yourself as a farmer,
Sure.
So I think we already have an agricultural component to our committee.
Okay, thank you for that. So let's move on then with the approval of the minutes from February the 9th, 2021. They are attached. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to peruse them. And if there are no errors or omissions, I would entertain a motion to receive and adopt.
Mr. Chair, so not that I like to admit that, but you may recall at the last meeting, I had the wrong time and I was absent for the first portion of the meeting.
That's correct.
So I actually did miss the adoption of the minutes. So my vote, I guess, would be a no, and so I guess the agenda, there was a recorded vote for the approval of the agenda. So the first two votes
You're right.
should be changed to a no, and my apologies again for that mistake at the last meeting.
So noted. Thank you for that. As amended then? And you're willing to approve?
I will, as amended.
Okay, seconder? Tom, are you,
Yes, I'll second, but I'm trying to find it here, but was Dave Mennels in the minutes, name put in by mistake? Is that-
yes, they were.
See, I do read these things.
Apologies, we noted that after we had sent it out.
So it's just, yeah, no, man, just trying to prove they do read them.
Nothing subliminal there, Tom.
I read them, not hard time remembering them, but no.
Okay, with those two corrections noted, then willing to second that?
Absolutely.
Okay, then could you call the question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gordon Marks,
Yes,
Councillor Martin,
Yes,
Councillor Jiguer,
Yes,
Councillor Ketchiba.
Yes,
4-0, the motion is carried.
thank you. Moving on with the community grant program request, just as a bit of an explanation, a county did receive correspondence from the Port Stanley Festival Theater. Originally, I thought we were going to hold on to these for another meeting or two. Just in case there were other requests for amendments or changes to their proposed programming for the year, given COVID-19. But this is on the agenda today, so I guess we'll deal with it. If you've read the letter, it's simply, they're thinking of changing their programming from a spring expenditure to a September expenditure. That's why I wasn't in a big rush. There's time to deal with this, but since it's here today, we'll go on with it. Anything staff want to add on that particular issue?
Not on my end.
Okay. Does anyone in the committee have any concerns regarding this particular grant request and a rejigging, shall we say?
I don't, I fully support it, and the reason I'm saying, I think the reason they would come to us now is when you're planning something for a theater, there is a lot of things to get
Mhm.
along. And so that's probably why they've requested it now.
Appreciate those comments.
fine.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have a proposed motion that, for this?
Sure. That the grant amendment request from the Port Stanley Festival Theater, as contained in correspondence from Port Stanley Festival Theater, be approved, and that the Port Stanley Festival Theater be notified,
Okay.
if it is the will of the committee to approve the request.
Well, we're going to notify them one way or the other anyway. Mover?
I would make that motion.
Thank you, Sally. Moved by Sally, seconder. Dominique will second. Then you can call the question, please.
Warden Marks,
Yes,
Councillor Martin,
Yes,
Councillor Jiguer,
yes,
Councillor Ketchiba.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on with the official plan review, the draft communications and engagement strategy. And I understand that presentation is forthcoming. Okay, who's taking the lead?
I'd be happy to get us started.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, through you to committee members. We have essentially developed a PowerPoint presentation that contains all of the same content as what you've received and what is included in the agenda package. really just for the purposes of being able to break it down into manageable chunks so that we can gather your feedback and direction as we go. Skip ahead through a couple of them. So we provided a bit of explanation as to why a robust public engagement strategy is critically important, particularly when it comes to something that is of such significant interest to our community as an official plan 5-year review. So the document that was included in the agenda has many different sections, including background, purpose, vision, promise, our process, opportunities, what the framework would look like, who our targeted audiences are, and what our tactics would be, and then how we will measure our success through this engagement strategy. Next slide, please. There's a lot of text on these slides. I do apologize, but so the background section of the document essentially provides some more information for the public and for the committee about what the official plan review process intends to do, what the goals are. Some more bullet points. The county is not developing a new official plan. We are reviewing the existing official plan to determine where updates need to be made. Reinforcing that the policies contained within the official plan address important parts of community building. And this affects everyone who lives, works, and plays in Elgin County, which is why it is important that we reach out to and engage as many people in this process as possible. So I'll stop here, and we are, in terms of your own document, we are on page 4. If you have any suggestions for improvement to this section, or even Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to undertake a different process, which is to gather high-level feedback first, that might be, that is at your discretion.
I think we'll open it up for a little discussion at this point. Comments? Yes, Dominique.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so I appreciate really just the document and having a strategy. I can also appreciate that we don't have benchmarks from 2013 and data, and I think that's not worth investing time. And that, having said that, is there other data or best practices from other municipalities that this is, like, can we inform our strategies from others who have had success, or are we groundbreaking and developing from scratch?
Not, but it's community specific. So it is so hard to, some communities in our province are more engaged and more participatory than others in our province. So in terms of applying others' metrics to how we might measure our own success as a benchmark, I think there is some risk of disappointment perhaps, because in Elgin, we are building towards being more accountable and more transparent and engaging more with our community. So I'd be happy to look into and reach out to my counterparts to find out what might be available in terms of metrics and report back to the committee, though I'm not sure what value they would offer. And I'd suggest we base our engagement strategy and our metrics on some of the successes we've had to date, recognizing we still have a long way to go before we're perfect in terms of our engagement with our community, because we are just building that trust and building that as a priority for County Council and for staff.
Okay.
To clarify, Mr. Chair, and I didn't mean just for the metrics, but just a strategy overall, if in the field of planning and official plans, if there are some best practices that you're able to draw from. I was curious.
Okay, go ahead and comment, or
One more comment that I probably looked at every single engagement strategy that exists for those municipalities who have recently completed an OP review or who are currently partway through their review. So we have built upon kind of the best practices and the trends that I could find through my own research, though I didn't provide that as a background report. It did very much inform what you see before you.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay, I would just offer from comment that through my experience, past experience with Bayham, having gone through 2 OP reviews over that time, yeah, they're very similar to what is being proposed here in this engagement, perhaps not even as elaborate. You circulate the documents as much as you can. If you can generate interest in the community, you have an open house, you provide all kinds of avenue for people to engage in the process. Some will, most don't. And at the end of the day, you take the comments that are received back, you build them back into the official plan as much as you can. And of course, we utilized a consultant to get us there. And, but it seems to have worked very well. Now, whether that was just a bare minimum from a statutory requirement, I'm not prepared to comment. I don't know. All I can suggest is that's how it's worked for us. And I think the comments that staff are suggesting that as long as it's as transparent and reaching and trying to engage and encourage participation, I think that's perhaps the benchmark that we can go for. Nancy, you have been through probably an OP review at the city or something. Is there anything that you think might be missing or lacking, or that the city might have done that isn't in the document, or does this go beyond the minimum?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've been through official plan reviews as well as a complete new official plan, which was a very extensive process that we, it's called Rethink London. And it was actually highly touted in terms of its engagement and consultation strategy, but it was also a very long process because it was a new official plan. So certainly there was a lot more background and, consultation that would be required for that. With respect to the official plan review, we've done very bare minimum ones at the City of London, simply because the timing of it was by the time our official plan review occurred, we had just gone through the Ontario Municipal Board hearings. So really it was a 2-year-old document after the end of the day. So there wasn't very much engagement. At this point, this document is, in my opinion, quite robust, actually. It has quite a bit of all of the components that you would look for in terms of consultation and trying to engage the community, noting that it's going to be a difficult time to engage when we are in the current circumstances we are. So I think there's a lot of variety and options, and I really think that this is an excellent consultation strategy, from my personal opinion, given the ones that I've dealt with at the city. So,
Okay. Tom or Sally, have you got any comments so far?
No, I think there's a good plan here on ways to involve people. And I mean, you're not going to meet everyone's expectations, but you're going to do your best to listen to important aspects for planning. And as we say, we're not rewriting it. We're just, we do have an official plan. We're just making so that it fits for the future, because things have changed in Elgin County since 2013.
Having been on the other side of the consultation through the Federation of Agriculture, when Mr. Evans was crafting the OP, various groups were very much involved in trying to make sure that the provisions were met and that it fit the needs of Elgin. And I do recall several opportunities meeting with Steve at various locations through the Federation and discussing the agriculture provisions. So that's just my own experience on dealing with Elgin's plan. And I agree with what Sally's saying. We're not reinventing, we're kicking the tires per se and making sure that it's tuned up as a requirement and it meets the current needs and goals. So
Yeah, just an update.
basically that's what we're doing. Yeah.
And I would agree with Nancy. I was involved in the original writing of Central Elgin's official plan. And I mean, I was sat on that committee for 6 years. It took us forever to finally get it done. And it was a lot of work and a lot of reading and preparation. So I'm glad this is just an update.
And Mr. Chair, I agree. I'd like to add that I think it is a review, but a lot has changed, not only in Elgin, but I think on the legislative side. So that's all I want to say. I don't want to downplay, and that's what I said at the special meeting. I don't want to downplay this is just a tweak or just.
Right.
So I think there might be more at play. So
Well, I think
I do think this plan would, this strategy would address it.
that's what I'm getting at. And if we're talking about the engagement side, I'm fairly comfortable. From a content side, I've got some concerns. I've got some big concerns, and we're going to be talking about that, I'm sure. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, it's more than just changing the dates. You have to read it and
Yeah. So having then, does that cover off page 4? Is there any additional comments staff wish to make, or shall we proceed on through the engagement strategy, or are we covered off? Are we comfortable?
If we hit on some of the headings
Yeah,
at kind of a high level and stopped there with a brief discussion, that might help with
sure.
timing and making sure we're not here till 10 PM. So we can skip right ahead to coordination with other projects. So you'll see through this plan, we intend to partner with as many different departments who are undertaking engagement activities or have events planned or initiatives planned. For instance, our 10 library branches are a great opportunity to spread the word. Summer students through our tourism kiosks, if we are functioning in tourism kiosks this summer or any sort of events, we will make sure that we're cross-promoting as much as possible. Two areas, or one key area for committee feedback is, we have some active projects relating to our official plan, the master plan, Elgin Natural Heritage System Study, the St. Thomas Elgin Affordable and Social Housing Strategy, and potentially contingent upon council approval and funding, the EMS Master Plan Study. Is there anything missing from this list that you can think of? It's that second set of eyes that's often helpful in these circumstances that.
Well, I'm wondering, what is the envision, or what's the level of engagement that from the planning advisory committee point of view? Are we going to be on the front lines reviewing comments coming in, or what do you plan? What is suggested?
So we had that in part 2
Okay,
of today's presentation.
and I've skipped ahead. Is there, then getting back to your question, then, is there any study or anything out there that you think that we're missing? And I'm not aware of anything at this point.
Well, the one thing I know, and I'm assuming we will be doing, and that is a population and growth study, because that's absolutely vital for it as well.
For sure. That's an internal study. So these ones are really the projects that fall outside of the defined scope of the official plan, so that we can ensure we're cross-promoting and working collaboratively.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I know, I'm trying to remember when, but we talked about the woodland conservation bylaw, that we agreed to do housekeeping.
Yep.
Earlier this year or last fall, and then said that a more fulsome review would be better if it was integrated as part of an official plan, because there's some connected points. So it's not a project right now that exists, but I do recall that.
There was some discussion around council, I believe, and I think at the end of the day, they opted for the desktop review, the
Housekeeping.
housekeeping review, yes.
With a view to opportunities to integrate with other reviews where pertinent.
I'll have to go back and confirm what that resolution was, because I don't specifically recall it being part of the official plan process, but I have been wrong before, so I would rather research it and find out.
It was named as an example. It's
No.
the next opportunity we have. Let's not do a fulsome review as a standalone and keep going back to the same community and the same landowners, when in fact we could be having a conversation about natural heritage, official planning, and woodland conservation all at once.
Mhm.
That's my recollection, but the record can, also, my memory is not perfect either.
I'm glad you brought it up. Great, so I think we're okay to skip ahead. So if we were to look at timelines, we have officially launched this process and our preliminary planning has commenced. And we hope to have some what we heard reports throughout the year that summarize the feedback that we've received. And you'll see later in the report, it details that these what we heard reports will be pretty comprehensive reports that will, I hope, meet your needs for some statistics, and you'll be able to gauge our reach through this strategy. So your first one, you'll be able to see May 1st in and around that date. And then we move on to policy review and information gathering phase. And this is June and July, where we'll engage consultants to undertake those population projections that Councillor Martin mentioned. We'll start working on provincial policy conformity and map new policies where needed. And that piece will be ongoing throughout the entire process, that policy revision work. And we'll continue with the community engagement through the next stage, which we will, the format will include information sessions, focus group meetings, interviews, written submissions are available at any time through this process. We'll purchase some advertising in our local print media, consider radio, social media, perhaps even mass mailouts, or partnering with our municipalities who are sending out water bills or other communications to their constituents. And we'll host community meetings. And this will be ongoing until the official plan is approved by County Council. The What We Heard documents, you'll have one in May, one in June, one in September, and one in December. And we are committed to producing additional reports as needed. But that's the minimum number of reports that will be received or compiled. Plan conformity, at this point, we will have reviewed all of the feedback received to date. We'll continue to engage the public in the review of draft policies and OP amendments, provide check-ins with council. And that is September, October. It's kind of the last review that is required before it goes to council for final approval. And if council approves the official plan, it is then submitted to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for approval. And we suspect the timelines, giving ourselves a bit of flexibility here, is December to February. COVID does create some delays in some instances. So while we think we have planned for everything, we've given ourselves a little bit of flexibility through this plan. The next section is purpose.
Just one question before you go on. I'm curious about what we heard. Like, if we get one May 1st and one 1st, like, what's happening between May 1st and June 1st that there would be need for a second what we heard?
Yes, that's a great question, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
The first what we heard really will summarize the public survey that's currently out. And Nancy will have focused in the meantime on focus groups and individual interviews and receiving some written submissions. And those will be compiled into what we heard too. We could merge them if there's no need for, okay.
No, I think I would, you could merge it all, but it makes a larger document to try to wade through. Whereas if you're getting more frequent updates, I would think it's a little more palatable, easier to take in. I assume the intent of the comments, I don't expect the raw comments. What I mean, I expect the intent of the comments are going to be communicated throughout. You know what I'm getting at? Just because something or a comment that's coming in which doesn't support the current provincial policy statement, I'm hoping that that gets communicated to us anyway. Because there's an issue out there. That's why it's being communicated.
For sure. I can assure you that we are committed to providing you with unfiltered feedback.
Thank you.
If I may, I don't know if this is the right time to mention it, but I could see tracking where the responses are coming from to see if there's anyone absent, so that we could proactively, if there's a demographic or a tax or category that somehow is not participating, I would like to keep track of that as well and do some analysis along the way so that we could do like a direct, if we do mailings, for example, we could do very targeted mailing to different categories. But we need to track that to see, are we getting a good cross-section, not just interest groups, for example, not just those who are proactively paying attention to this kind of work.
Right.
There might be others who could be impacted but are not following this closely. And if we monitor that, we could actually reach out on our own.
It's a possibility. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, if you're missing a particular demographic. I would still suggest that once you've gone through the advertising process of whether it's through print media or it's on the website or whether it's advertised through the libraries or whether the local planning coordinators are encouraging people to engage the survey or questionnaire or, you know, it should be out there, but not guaranteeing. I know what you're saying. It's how do you get people engaged to participate? And it's tough.
We'll do our best.
Yes, I know.
Oh, we can-
I already know that from the strategy, and sometimes and what studies will show in participation is that you may see all the advertising, you just don't realize that that's an issue that actually affects you. And therefore you go to the library, you see it you see it everywhere, but you still prioritize your time. And so that's where we may need to be proactive. But I think already the way it's heading, the way things are going to be worded in terms of impact and stuff, I think we're already covering that very well.
Great.
So this next section is really, it just details why we are engaging the community and how we will use citizen input to inform this very important process. Any feedback? Okay. So our vision is actually that citizens have a meaningful role in the decisions that impact the quality of their life, specifically as it relates to this process. Though my hope is to eventually have a standardized engagement guide that would guide any of our engagement processes in other departments as well. So for this engagement, it is that people feel that they have a meaningful role and that we are going to value and incorporate their feedback whenever possible into the plan revisions. And our promise is to provide them with meaningful opportunities so that they can participate in key issues in the policy review. Our other promise is that we'll have two-way dialogue with the community. So we want to hear from them and we'll also engage back with them. So we'll respond to them, we'll interview them, we'll have community meetings with them, and we'll make it as easy as possible for anyone to join in on the conversation. We'll listen and report back to our community about the outcomes of the process. So when Carolyn comes back, there's also a framework here for you. Promise to the public what it means, what it looks like, and the tools and techniques. Open to any feedback or suggestions for changes or amendments.
I'm hearing none.
Great. So our process itself, we know that this process has to be inclusive. We have to be accountable and transparent. To be successful, this process needs to be built on partnerships. We have to communicate in a timely fashion. We have to ensure kind of in the back end that we are supporting this process and that it's adequately resourced. Because something like this doesn't happen with a department of one or two. This happens with a lot of support from across the number of departments. And our process also includes tracking metrics, evaluating those metrics, and a commitment for improving the process as we go, making changes. If something's not working, we'll change it and adjust it. But also noting those improvements for the next time we have to engage the public in such a significant way. So the next slide would just expand on each of those sections. Open to any feedback at this section. Okay,
I'm still
good.
supportive.
That's great. So the next section details our goals. So the goals for this plan to meet and exceed statutory requirements for citizen engagement. We want to effectively communicate the OP and this process and the scope to the general public so that they understand why we're doing this. And we want those efforts to be wide-reaching. And we want to make sure that it's in an accessible format, both in format and content. So we're using plain language and accessible language, but it's also visually appealing, but wouldn't preclude anyone with any sort of disability from accessing all of this material. We want to make sure that the public is educated about what an official plan is, what's the impact to them personally and to their property, to their community as a whole. We'll do this through frequently asked questions if needed. We'll tailor messages according to what we're hearing and according to the audience. And we want to engage the public as much as possible to gather as much meaningful feedback regarding the official plan for council's review and consideration as possible. We want to ensure that people are informed about the actual review process, the timelines, and the opportunities for consultation, both through formal and informal means, because formal means it doesn't necessarily appeal to everyone, nor do informal opportunities. So hopefully we've appealed to most through this plan. We want to provide some food for thought and points for consideration by the public, which will help in their education and their our engagement efforts. And we want to ensure that we're capturing some underrepresented voices through this process and encouraging them to participate. Are we missing anything with respect to goals?
No, I think they're quite admirable and hopefully they're all achievable.
I'm certain with your support it will be. I mean, the committee's support in general, right? Not just Mayor Ketchabah, Councillor Ketchabah. So the next section is our actions. So we will use community feedback to help our understanding of the strengths, weaknesses, and gaps, issues, and opportunities that exist within our current official plan. And that'll help us determine the scope of changes, priorities, and improvements needed to our official plan. We will creatively engage and communicate with a wide range of stakeholders, including residents, communities of interest, workers, organizations, and more. Later on, we talk about audiences. We will provide opportunities through the OP review process for participants to provide meaningful, appropriate, and actionable input that will actually translate into changes to the official plan when appropriate. We will make sure that opportunities for involvement are convenient and accessible, and that we will engage individuals who are from underrepresented communities that are potentially harder to reach. We will communicate in a clear and concise way what the goals are of the official plan review and what the process can and cannot influence, and how the public input was used to shape the official plan. We will combine engagement events and conversations with other projects when possible and when appropriate. We will implement innovative communication and engagement tactics when possible, and we will understand the needs of communities and stakeholders. Comments?
I think the committee is supportive so far.
Great. So our audience for this plan, recognizing that we have council and county staff involvement, there's municipal partner involvement, and there's ministry involvement. Our focus for this plan is really external stakeholders. So the community as a whole, special interest groups, and other stakeholders. We have broken down our audience into residents to include renters and seasonal occupants. Workers are people who work in the county, visitors, tourists, locals attending an event or other. Businesses, organizations, and institutions. This includes, but is not limited to, businesses, service clubs, industry, developers, landowners, agribusiness and farmers, and really anyone else that we could reach out to. Communities of interest include lower income groups, seniors at risk populations, people with disabilities, youth, parents, ecology organizations, and again, another list that is likely to expand as we get further along into our engagement process. And then stakeholders, identified and self-identified groups. Is this list comprehensive?
It's comprehensive, but it's also interesting. For example, if the audience is visitors, you're looking at, say, people from outside the region, and you're asking them for an input into your official plan. I find that intriguing because normally you're asking for an outsider to have an impact on something that affects landowners here. You
Yes,
know what I'm getting at?
I know exactly.
That's kind of, I don't understand. I guess I don't fully buy into that yet, but.
So I have a couple of comments. One is they would clearly be identified in any of our, what we heard as comments from visitors. And I think that offers interesting insight into how others perceive us.
All right.
What might help with our business engagement or employee engagement or retention strategies in Elgin. As well, they could be prospective residents of Elgin. But as long as I think the committee and council can see, this is information coming from those living and working outside of Elgin, it may offer you some interesting perspective, which is why I included it.
I can understand that. I had concerns as Ed did about, I mean, I think it's important for us to see how they perceive us, but I can certainly see you doing that, but I think a lot of it will be more people within Elgin as far as actually gearing the plan to.
So the other motivation for this visitor section was if we are coordinating our communication efforts and if we had information available about the OP review process at, say, the Port Stanley Tourism Kiosk, inevitably our staff who are working out there, our summer students, would receive information about the county. And so we should be collecting it because I think it's going to exist if those services are available this summer.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So we've broken down our engagement process into 4 phases. The first one is to understand the context. And this will include survey and a special meeting of council. So we're already in phase 1 right now, where the survey is open until April 15th. And then we go into phase 2, where we really start to dig our heels into gathering information. So current state assessment, conceptualizing our future. And phase 3 includes developing the plan and visualizing our future, and then finalizing the plan. And as part of finalizing the plan, the key engagement component is to communicate the appeals process for anyone who's dissatisfied with council's approval. So phase 1, just to break it down even further, information to present includes the current official plan and introductory video, which is posted on our website. Questions that we're asking: what are the strengths of the official plan? What are the weaknesses of the current official plan? What are the gaps in policy? What are the opportunities to improve the current official plan? What's your vision for the official plan? And we have quite a long list of survey questions. This preliminary input will be used to define the current state and will highlight areas, some high level areas for improvement to our current official plan. So strengths to maintain and enhance, gaps to fill, weaknesses to improve, opportunities to realize, and the feedback, I think, is likely to also inform policy work and adjustments to existing policy that is required through this process. And then deliverables. So feedback received through the special meeting of County Council, which was held on February 25th, combined with the online survey, will be presented in, that should just say, engagement summary report number 1. Questions about phase 1? So phase 2, we will present information as part of this phase, what we heard engagement summary report 1, and then report 2, again, as previously discussed, includes feedback received through focus groups and interviews that Nancy's conducted over and above the survey and the feedback received from at the special meeting of council. We'll also present some ideas for suggestions to policy revisions and some questions to ask. Have we missed anything in the scoping for the community? So have we missed anything? Here's the suggested framework, policy updates, which includes new policies and revised policies. Have we missed anything? Input gathered through this stage will be used to refine the analysis and revise the draft official plan, and will inform the official plan and associated policy updates and technical background documents that are required to support the educational component of this engagement strategy. So the deliverables are engagement materials, online survey number 2, what we heard, engagement summary number 3, public meeting regarding natural heritage system study, and public meeting regarding population projection study in October. Okay, great. So phase 3, where we visualize our future and start developing the plan, we would present the what we heard engagement summary number 3. We would present the draft official plan and associated policies, technical background documents. We would ask questions that include any changes to policies or the official plan as a result of legislation. And we'll present those changes in order of priority to ensure alignment with the provincial policy statement. We'll ask people about their level of agreement for the direction of the official plan and to comment if they feel anything is missing or should be changed. This input will be used to inform the final revisions of the plan before it's presented to County Council for approval. And all this feedback will be presented to Council in an unfiltered way so that Council can see what we're recommending and Council can see what the community was telling us. And the deliverables will be engagement materials, online survey number 3, what we heard, engagement summary report number 4, and then public meeting draft official plan amendments, which is targeted for December 2021. So then phase 4 carries forward. The information to present is what we heard engagement summary report 4. And the deliverables would be a public meeting to review the final official plan, which could happen sometime, I believe we said between December and March or February, March of 2022. Information about how our community and stakeholders could escalate concerns related to the final official plan. And that's a ministry process, but we would help share that information with our stakeholders and community. So that details phases 1 through 4. And then there's some activity always happening in between engagement periods. So to maintain interest and support, we would provide updates on the OP review process and what we heard from previous engagement periods. We'll share interesting facts, educational material, promotional material, the what we heard engagement summaries, number 1 through 4. We'll provide regular progress updates, and we'll produce some visually appealing display and information material so that it's all ready to go in case we hear or learn of a new opportunity to attend an event and have kind of a pop-up engagement opportunity. So any comments about 1 through 4? Great. So we're still okay. Key messages are a critical component to any communications and engagement strategy. And some of this may start to seem a little repetitious, but it is important for your consideration. One is, we will communicate key definitions, the importance of the official plan, why our residents would want to provide feedback and participate in the project, and how this plan is used and applied by County Council. We'll provide some conversation starters, things to consider. We want to detail for our community the review scope and the review timelines, how people can have their say, how they can be involved. And we want to know what they think. They can go online, they can email us, they can visit us at engagement events. They can, this messaging will include information pertaining to when, how, and for example, attend the open house on X to share your thoughts, or tell us what you think about X through this survey. And we'll also communicate why they should participate, and through such kind of says, this is your opportunity to share your vision for the future of Elgin County. And you have the opportunity to help shape the vision of Elgin County for County Council. And we'll communicate how their input will be used to inform the official plan, policy, technical documents, all of which will be reviewed by council. So there's a bit of a graphic here, some samples. We haven't defined these messages yet or really refined them, but just some ideas. We all have a stake in the future of Elgin County. Public feedback is important to this process, or essential to this process. It's valued and needed. Thank you for your help. What are your priorities for our future? Let us know your ideas for a refreshed official plan vision and updated priorities for land use and growth for our future county. The survey is now closed, but we still want to hear from you. Email, call, website, those kinds of, strategies to maintain their interest and the momentum of the engagement. And then such phrases as the official plans shape the way a community will look over time. Your feedback is critical to ensuring the updated official plan will serve the community well now and for years to come. And I think once we really engage in this process, we will have many more of these types of supportive and encouraging phrases that we'll be able to come up with. As well, once we have some preliminary feedback either received through the survey, we'll be able to tailor these messages in a meaningful way. So any thoughts about key messages?
I think it's pretty early in the game for those kinds of key messages, but again, thus far throughout the engagement plan, I'm encouraged that, the county is going to be trying to reach and engage people, which I think is what was some of the concerns that we wanted to make sure that this was going to take place. And it fits in with our, our strategic plan and priorities. And so far I'm comfortable. If something comes along, I'm sure that we'll let you know.
Great.
I would agree with that, Mr. Chair, that I could see some of the messages being guided by the early feedback. If we see some themes or something that needs to be debated, then we can customize and elicit specific discussion on themes that are coming from the earlier reports.
For
So
sure.
definitely this will evolve, so that's great.
Great. So there's a section about communications, but I think we've covered the importance of messaging and communicating. So if we skip ahead to evaluation. So we'll administer these what we heard reports, and we'll use those as a tool to connect back with the community and connect back with the committee and connect back with council. So we'll have to make sure that these what we heard reports are effective. The project team will follow guidance from the communication and engagement strategy to develop measures of success, which are based on our goals of demonstrating a culture of public engagement, displaying mutual respect and benefit, making sure the process is inclusive and accessible, making sure our processes are effective, and that our activities are well managed and efficient. The broader themes of the evaluation will include overall acceptance of the engagement strategy. For instance, my voice was heard, and this was a fair process. Awareness of the official plan and the strategy outcomes. I understand the information and how this impacts me. Inclusive and barrier-free engagement process, and participants agree that they understand how the input from the engagement activity will be used. And they agree that they had enough information to contribute to the topic. So that links back to the education component. And that this was effective in terms of relationship building between county staff, individuals, and groups. So the engagement, again, displayed mutual respect and benefit. Comments? Nope. Good. So reporting and metrics. Here are the deadlines for what we heard: May 1st, June 1st, September 1st, and December 1st. And each of these reports will include a summary of the engagement tactics, numbers, themes, tensions, and other relevant data, and unfiltered information. Quantitative measures. We will, as much as possible, keep records and stats on the number of individuals we've reached through targeted interviews, focus groups, hard to reach individuals, whether those were administered through interviews or we reached out to those folks at events. We'll keep track of the number of attendees and responses received through public events and virtual meetings, sounding board responses, online survey responses. So if possible, and if it's appropriate, we will administer a survey at in-person engagement events. And we might ask whether the time and date, so we're on the next slide, but whether the time and date worked for them. And was the event accessible? Was the purpose clearly explained? We'd want to make sure that the respondent understood the purpose of the activity and how their input would be used. We want to be able to measure whether they felt respected and that mutual respect exists, that they felt safe through any sort of public engagement activity, if they felt their views were heard, they felt the activity was well organized, and if it was a good use of their time. And if information presented to them was informative and easy to understand, if the setup was appropriate, or if they had other comments, and perhaps some comments about what they liked most about the event, so we could build on our successes. And then just a general comment section about how the county could improve upon future engagement events. I did note in this section that numbers are not always the best indicator of success. Quantitative data is useful in terms of making people aware of the official plan review process, but sometimes the best information is gathered from conversations with individuals or small groups of individuals. So qualitative data from small group conversations can, not always, but can be more meaningful and relevant. So we are trying to balance all of our initiatives to make sure we're not only achieving numbers, but we're actually getting valuable feedback through this process. Comments about reporting and metrics?
Yes, please, Dominique.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To be mindful, I love all these questions, but sometimes the hard thing is you have to choose. People will not tolerate a long survey, and just the number of questions might be a turnoff. So we might have to strategize, and some of them could be combined, or.
For sure.
Yeah, because I love the notion that we also are evaluating our own process. So it's a matter of trying to maximize responses.
Yeah, I would think you're right. You want to, get as many responses as you can. I would argue that if someone chooses not to answer the question, they're not going to answer it, just the way it is. My comment is that, and I recognize that this is a new engagement process, so you're trotting it out and you're looking for feedback on how it's going to work. I think this first go around, it's going to be administratively ambitious. And, if it has, once it's been used and is proven to be successful, I'm hoping the next iteration on whatever topic it is wouldn't be so administratively burdensome to do. So it's a toss up because I'm thinking, my God, this is going to take a lot of resources to do. But on the other hand, if this is a test vehicle, it's worth doing.
For sure. And this is intended to be a guideline. And so
Yes.
we are endeavoring, we will achieve the deliverables, but we may flex the plan in order to meet the needs of our community in terms of engagement, but also to meet resourcing needs as they ebb and flow perhaps through the seasons. But to your point, perhaps if we had an event and it wasn't possible to have a survey available on an iPad, or then maybe our staff who are at that event can just check in with people and we can try to gather a general sense of, was this meaningful? Do you understand what you're here for? And do you understand? So those are kind of conversation starters too, if we aren't able to gather it through formal means.
Yep.
Great. So we hope to be able to have some place-based events. We also hope to have strategic interviews and some presentations and workshops. We hope to have a robust online presence. As mentioned, we hope to reach out to some hard-to-reach people and in-person events. So going back to place-based, target audience really is our list of target audience from before. It doesn't vary from each of the plan tactics, between the plan tactics, but if municipal offices open up again, and if our libraries are fully open and our museums and our community is really open, we'll have some displays, we'll have pop-ups, we'll have some sounding boards where people could leave Post-it notes or comments so that we're engaging people at various locations throughout the county, to be determined based on what things look like in our community in the coming months. So posters, postcards, displays, we're targeting those that are kind of quick wins for us, but we're not opposed to reaching out to other large employers or other commercial outlets within our community to be able to get the word out. Sometimes on someone's way home, they could stop into the local cafe that they know has a bulletin board in the front entrance. Just pop up one of these postcards on your way home tonight. We'll try to do what we can to ensure that it's promoted in as many different ways as possible. So in person, what's next? Nope, did I skip ahead?
No,
I'm missing a page. So I'll endeavor to see without glasses on the screen. So strategic interviews will include interviews, meetings, presentations with stakeholders. We'll prepare some stakeholder kits and discussion guides. We have a framework and some preliminary discussion questions that we're just working on refining before we start into that process. And we will ask people if they want to participate, and we also have a list of people who we will target and invite to have those conversations. Online includes the same target audience, and tactics will be an online questionnaire or multiple questionnaires if needed. And social media, website, we're hoping to figure out a way to have kind of that two-way communication where we'd use online means by which to be able to show some residents if they're willing to make their post public, like you would for a London Free Press comment, then we're hoping to be able to come up with a way that we can share other people's comments, and they can post more publicly than on our website rather than just on Facebook. We would do this through the website, through email updates, where we would do progress reports, quick emails, check-ins, what we heard reports, social media. We'll have some paid advertisements, print, online. That should mention perhaps radio as well, if appropriate, and then news releases. Then hard to reach. This is a hard to reach group. So we propose print-based surveys, mass mailouts if possible, postcards with information about how to participate. But I put other because we could use the committee's feedback.
Of course, that is almost dependent upon the early replies that we get. Identify if there is a missing group out there. Otherwise, I guess, I don't know what to tell you.
And to your point, through the initial survey and through feedback received at the special meeting, it is hard to discern whether those folks are hard to reach individuals or not. We won't be asking for that specific level of detail necessarily, so.
And these kinds of comments and participation from the hard to reach group, I suspect would be later on in the process.
Hopefully throughout, but maybe as a targeted approach later.
Right.
Approach
Well, I think
later.
to Dominique's point, earlier, yeah.
Yep.
Because there are two ways you're hard to reach, either because you're not engaged, you're not connecting with the issues, even though you see it everywhere, or you're just outside, you're not using social media, you don't have a subscription.
Right.
to a newspaper. And so yeah, I think it will be a combination of both. Based on what we get, I think.
I think so. And I think also part of that group would be from an accessible point of view, whether it's a language barrier. We do have a population that low German speaking, and they may not participate in English, and we'll have to find another outlet, whether we go through MCC or somebody else.
Yeah, so certainly for Malahide, that's an important part of the community and very influential and very active. Their businesses and development and building hopes and dreams. So yes, yeah,
Do you publish your documents in more than one language in Malahide?
So Aylmer also.
not consistent.
Okay, occasionally?
issue.
Okay. Great. So in-person is next, and this is where we're optimistic we'll be able to have some in-person focus groups, workshops, where we would have presentations and solicit feedback. And we'll directly communicate those through means already discussed. So that wraps up our plans for how we will engage our community in the official plan process. Again, as always, open to feedback, but
Yeah. I think it's a good pause spot right here. And so I'm going to put it out to the floor. From what you've heard of the process so far, anyone got any concerns? Sally, are you good with the process thus far?
Yeah, I would say that it's very extensive and it may need tweaking as we go, but I think it's an excellent start, definitely.
Yeah, okay. I'm seeing nods. I think the committee's generally, well satisfied at this point. So thank you.
One side.
great.
And I will say that what I like most of is the fact that it's active. There's sometimes many engagement processes that are more passive, where you take what you get and you're satisfied with whoever shows up and say, well, we tried. And I think it was mentioned at the beginning, this is designed to exceed minimum requirements. And you can see that. And I think that's the key difference that I see is the proactive. And we're going to monitor and adjust along the way to ensure that we've done everything we could. So thank you for that.
It was a team effort.
Keep them quiet on that. I suspect it was, but you know what I mean?
Everything we do is. So the official plan, part 2, if I could ask, Carolyn already has it up on the screen. So we want to use this information to inform the public about what the role of county council is as well. So this slide details what county council's role is. And this was informed from information received through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing about the specific legislated role of council in an OP review. So then the next slide is the role of the RIPA committee. So I do think that the RIPA committee will play a fundamental role in encouraging citizens in this process and encouraging them to not only participate, but to bring forward their ideas, concerns, suggestions. And I've listed 3 ways that the RIPA committee can play a critical role in this process, but of course it's open to discussion. So the committee will ensure citizens are engaged in meaningful ways through the OP review process by reviewing and providing feedback on the communications and engagement strategy for council's review and approval. Reviewing community and stakeholder feedback on a quarterly basis or more frequently if needed. And this includes review of the What We Heard updates as detailed in part 1 of the official plan review, communications and engagement strategy, and recommending modifications to the official plan for county council's consideration based on community input. That seem comprehensive?
I think so.
Yeah.
Right. And then county staff. Planning impacts many areas of the county, and there will be a number of senior leaders who form part of a project team led by the manager of planning, and that includes myself, director of engineering, director of community and cultural services, director of finance, and supervisor of legislative services. And this project team will meet at least once per engagement phase and more frequently if needed to evaluate the engagement process, discuss resourcing needs, and determine next steps. And the manager of planning will leverage department-specific expertise and incorporate project team feedback throughout the official plan review process. The role of our local municipal partner councils is to play a critical role in helping engage the public in the official plan review and also providing feedback themselves. Local planning and administration staff. Local planning staff are invited to participate as part of a technical advisory panel. And I think Nancy, have you already established this panel? Work's already underway. Everyone's participating.
Yes, that's right.
That's great.
Local planners basically and local planning staff are engaged and
Good.
That's great. So this technical advisory panel will meet at least once per engagement phase, more frequently if needed, to discuss major topics identified by the issue scoping report. They'll review and evaluate any reports and proposed policy direction and drafts, and they'll provide preliminary feedback. And then the role of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, which you received as part of your package, again, detailed on the ministry's website. And that is the extent of the materials that we prepared for your meeting today.
Okay, any comments from committee members? Any additional comments or questions?
I would say it's extensive and very well thought out, and I look forward to the process and getting those, what people have to say, sheets back.
I would agree, absolutely. No, I think it's a well thought out process, as Sally has mentioned. I think it surpasses what we've even done at the local level in terms of our OP reviews, and I think it's a necessary one. So, no, thank you for that. A lot of work drafting it and putting it together, but thank you. All the way to the top. Do we need a motion or something to receive the official plan review process? Typically, we do that at council. I just don't know whether you want one at the committee process. We can.
I think so. It wouldn't hurt.
All right, then.
Happy to move it.
Tom will move. Sally, would you be willing to second the motion to receive the communications or the official plan engagement strategy? Sure. Okay.
Do we want to do more than receive? Do we need to endorse or recommend?
What do you need? Yeah.
You could endorse it and direct staff to present it to council.
All right.
Yep, that sounds,
Sure. Sounds good.
I think I would.
yep, that sounds very good.
More active than passive.
Okay.
All right. Warden Marks,
Yes.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer,
Yes.
Counselor Ketchabah.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. I think we've already discussed the recruitment committee composition. So I don't think we need to rehash that, or do you need a recommendation from the committee to report to council?
Yeah, I think that, that the chairman be directed to submit a report to council that recommends that the composition of or the terms of reference be updated to include a committee comprised of the
Yeah.
the 3 county councillors and the warden.
Okay. All right, then, let's make it official. You'll move that?
Clarification, so if we need to, if there are discussions related to the natural heritage study, because that study still has its own terms of reference. So do we need to ensure that any discussions related to that has a representative from?
I think that's already passed through the committee process. It's gone to council, but it hasn't gone anywhere since then. And if I understand the engagement process, there's going to be this public presentation August?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, the hope is that we will have a public engagement meeting on the natural heritage strategy. So basically, we'll start to share that information with the community because I actually don't even see it on our website. So I want to make sure that that's available for people to review in adequate time, receive comments on it, and then ultimately have a public meeting on it as well.
I guess the point I was trying to make, I think it's already passed the committee process. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think the requirement is there for a community member at this point.
Okay,
That's what I'm getting at.
yeah, just
Okay.
clarifying that.
So having clarified
Yes,
that,
I'll move.
perfect. You'll wordsmith something out for us, won't you, Catherine? We need a seconder for that. Sally wants to do it. Thank you. Call the question, please.
Warden Marks,
Yes.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer,
Yes.
Counselor Ketchabah.
Yes,
4-0, the motion is carried.
thank you. Any correspondence today?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do we need to establish a next meeting date? We know that we were going to talk about something on the grant process in April or May.
The survey
The
response.
survey responses, yes. Can we combine that with the first report of engagement comments? So it'll be in May sometime? What works best, the first Tuesday or the first meeting of council or the second one? The first works best? Okay. I don't even know what that date is.
Me neither.
May 11th.
May 11th.
In court.
Otherwise, you'll be too behind on the second what we heard report.
All right.
Receiving it, so we need
All
to
right.
get that one as close to May 1st as possible. Does it have to coincide with a council meeting?
No, it does not.
No.
So maybe we target the first week in May, given that it's a little ways out. Perhaps we'll send a doodle poll.
That would be a good idea. I'm not as tech savvy as Duncan. I can't do it from the tractor seat.
No. Yet.
So we'll send a doodle poll out then, and, but we'll be aiming for early May. Okay, is there anything else before this committee?
Move adjournment.
Moved by the warden for adjournment. Any seconder? Dominique will second. And I'll look to Catherine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Warden Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Councillor Jiguer,
Yes.
Councillor Ketchabah.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. So we stand adjourned at 2:20. Thank you.